everyone, I'm Karen from the Peace Discipline channel, where you can learn more about non-violent discipline. In today's video, we'll be looking at what to do when a child says you don't understand, and it will be relevant to parents, to teachers, and anyone else who works with or cares for children. Parents often ask me how to talk to their children about a particular thing, as if the important piece is having the right words to say to get through to them. But what you have to say to them may not be the important piece. Let me illustrate this with a story. A mother shared with me that she had been having a difficult time with her 12-year-old daughter. Nearing the end of primary school, her friends were becoming more and more important to her, and with that came some peer issues that she hadn't had to deal with before. Mum tried to guide her, but this seldom went well. As they spoke, the daughter would get more and more agitated, saying, "You don't understand," and then shutting down in an angry sulk. Mum worked with children herself at the same school her daughter attended, and she tried her best to get through to her. The more she tried, the worse things got, until one day she tearfully confided in a colleague, saying, "I feel like I'm losing my child." Not only did she find the loss of connection with her daughter heartbreaking, she also worried about the direction her daughter would go in as she reached adolescence, and the dangers and temptations she might face. How was she to support her through this time if they couldn't even manage to talk without arguing? Soon after that, Mom attended a peace discipline workshop as part of staff training at work. When we did the section on active listening, she thought of the conversations with her daughter. She realized that she wasn't giving her daughter enough chance to talk. You see, as they spoke, things her daughter said would worry her, and then she would try to advise and guide her to prevent the things she feared from happening. This would only frustrate her daughter, and they would end up arguing. In the workshop, we watched a video in which a mom gives her child space to talk about something which upset them without any interruption, admonishment, or advice. After watching the video, Mom decided to try talking less and instead work on how she listened. After that, instead of advice, she made sure to give her daughter space to talk without interruption. She asked open-ended questions to help her daughter think about the situation she found herself in. Examples of open-ended questions are, "What was that like for you?" Or, "How did you feel when she said that?" "What are your options?" Or, "What do you think you'll do?" As her daughter answered the questions, Mom reflected back what she was saying to check her understanding and to help her daughter feel heard. Examples of active listening reflections are, "It sounds like you felt left out," or, "So you felt disappointed," or, "It sounds embarrassing." You'll notice that in these reflections, feelings are mentioned. This helps children to learn about their emotions and to see that you care about how they feel. Back to our story. Sometimes Mom summarized what her daughter had said so far. An example of summarizing would be, "So just about everything that happened today felt frustrating," or, "So first you felt left out, and then when you tried to talk to her about it, you felt even more hurt by what she said." At the end of the workshop series, Mom came to share her story with me. She told me how she had feared that she was losing her daughter, but how active listening had turned the whole situation around. After just a few weeks, their relationship felt completely different. Her daughter talked and talked to her now, and the more Mom listened in this way, the more she opened up. She no longer said, "You don't understand," and they no longer ended up arguing. Every day, they traveled on the bus together from Khayelitsha to the school. "It's far," I said, but she responded with, "I don't mind. I don't mind at all, because that's our talking time. We both look forward to it, and we talk the whole way." It was wonderful to hear how they were connecting, and how talking on the bus had become a ritual they both cherished. They felt so much closer, and now that they could talk like this, Mom felt more ready to face any challenges that might come up in the adolescent years. She said, "I know now that things are going to be okay." Good, warm, open communication between child and parent, of the kind that encourages child disclosure, is a huge protective factor. Although this mom was giving less advice, She was doing something far more effective and important. She was improving their communication through good listening, and in so doing, preparing well for her daughter's journey through adolescence. Let's look at another example. A mom was worried about her son getting behind at school. He had been sick with COVID, and she knew he had missed a lot. She wondered if he realized how much work it would take to catch up. Wanting to be supportive, she asked him about it frequently, advising him about what he needed to do. But she noticed that he seemed annoyed with her when she did this. He didn't say, "You don't understand," but his tone seemed frustrated and defensive. So instead of talking more, Mom stopped and tried a response that fitted better with what was happening in that moment. "I can hear from your voice that you're frustrated with me, like there's something I'm not getting. Tell me, what is it that you feel I'm not getting?" Well, that opened things up quite a bit. "You're not getting that I have already thought about that and I am already working on it. You're not getting that I am also worried about not catching up on time. And I'm trying as hard as I can." So all those things I was saying were unnecessary. Instead of helping, I was making you feel worse, adding to your stress and taking up time talking when you needed to work. Yes, I'm very sorry. I wanted to be supportive. I can see the way I was doing it wasn't helpful to you. You get on with your work then. Okay, thanks, Mom. Sorry for shouting. Attunement is when your responses fit with the child's needs and signals, and it's the thing that makes them feel safe and understood. When we as adults give advice, we may not notice that the child is already aware of some of the things we are saying, and that they may be able to handle the situation by themselves. Giving advice where it's not needed or wanted is a kind of misattunement. In the case of advice, there's the added problem that if the child does manage the situation well, the adult might assume that it's because of their advice and not because of the child's efforts and competence. This further misattunement can be really frustrating to children because it perpetuates the idea that the adult advice is needed and keeps their own competence unseen. Advice may seem like a helpful thing, but actually, it's only good if the child needs or wants it at the time. It's common for parents and teachers to complain that children don't listen. But if we look closer, we can see that it's often the adult that is not listening well. For example, when a child tries to speak, the parent might take over the conversation, using it as an opportunity to advise the child and talk about their concerns, instead of listening to what the child wanted to say. Children receive a lot of unsolicited advice from adults, and this can really undermine and frustrate them. No wonder they end up yelling, "You don't understand!" Rather than give advice, it can work better to ask the child what they think. You'll often find that they will say some of the things that you are going to tell them, and then you can affirm them for their sense and competence, rather than overriding them with yours. You might say, "That sounds like a good idea," or "I feel proud of you for how you handled that." It's so much more effective to affirm them once they have said something than to try and say everything yourself, leaving the child feeling lectured, hammered by your worries, and unseen in the areas they are managing well. Attunement means our responses need to fit with our children's needs and signals. When they yell, "You don't understand," it can be quite triggering for the parent, and a common response might be to yell something back, like, "What don't I understand?" Or, "I understand much better than you think." But if we can get past being offended by this statement, we might be able to see it as a signal guiding us to better attunement. So, the first thing I would suggest when your child says, "You don't understand," is to consider that maybe you really don't, and do some active listening to fix this. Sincerely ask your child to help you understand, and then listen to what they say. Reattune so that for the rest of your conversation, your responses can fit better with their signals. If the child is so frustrated that they no longer want to talk, then respond in a way that fits with that. And don't force a conversation at this point. Rather, wait for the next chance to talk, and this time, don't give advice. Instead, give the child space to talk, reflect back what they are saying, and show that you understand. And then, listen some more. If you're doing this well, the child will start to feel understood and will be more likely to open up to you in future. If you're listening to what the child says so that you can respond with a more persuasive argument for doing things your way, then you're not really listening. The important thing is not persuading your child. The important thing is attuning to them. The important thing is that the conversation is open and that you are able to connect with your child in a caring way. If you can do this, there's more chance that your child will feel helped and stay open to your guidance. Sometimes, as a child talks, the adult thinks of a suggestion they want to give, but as we've seen, advice can shut the conversation down. So how can we give a suggestion in a way that doesn't do this? Try this. Rather than saying, what you need to do is, or you should try, give your suggestion in a more tentative way, like, what if, or I wonder what would happen if, or what do you think would happen if you said. This invites the child to think about your suggestion and whether it could work for them without feeling pressure to follow your advice. Sometimes they'll find your suggestion helpful, but it's equally likely that they'll think it won't work. And if so, listen carefully to why. They may well be right. Understanding their perspective is an important part of attunement to the child, and attunement is more important to your relationship than any advice you can give. What if, as you listen to the child, you feel worried about what they're saying? In fact, worrying is one of the main reasons adults hammer away at children with too much advice. If you have a concern, that's okay, but don't interrupt the child and take over the conversation. Instead, hold on to your concern and listen first. Further on in the listening process, when the child has had enough space to speak, then you can voice your concern. For example, you might say, I feel worried that, or listening to you, what I feel concerned about is, and after sharing your concern, give the child a chance to respond. So to sum up, when a child says, you don't understand, see this as a cry for better attunement and try to improve the situation with active listening. Say something like, I'm sorry, I can see you feel I'm not getting it. Help me understand better. Then give the child plenty of space to speak without interrupting. Ask open-ended questions and reflect back what the child is saying. Check your understanding and help them feel heard. Hold back on giving suggestions or voicing concerns until the child has had enough time to speak. Make suggestions tentative. Lastly, remember to affirm the child for things they're doing well, such as saying something insightful or doing something sensible. Today's video focused mainly on active listening because it's very important. But active listening is only one tool in the discipline toolkit, and it won't always be enough on its own. If you would like to find out more about other discipline tools, you can have a look at the free discipline toolkit on peacediscipline.com. I'm not suggesting that active listening will fix everything, but I will say this. Working in the South African context, where many of us did not grow up with this kind of listening, I often receive feedback from teachers and parents that of all the tools in the discipline toolkit, this one made the biggest difference. In closing, I'd like to read a poem which you can also find on the Peace Discipline website. I'm not sure who wrote it. Listening. You're not listening to me when you do not care about me. When you say you understand before you know me well enough. You have an answer for my problem before I finish telling you what my problem is. You're not listening to me when you cut me off before I finish speaking. When you feel critical of my vocabulary, grammar, or accent. You're not listening to me when you're dying to tell me something, or when you tell me about your experience, making mine seem unimportant. You're not listening to me when you're communicating to someone else in the room. I would add here, or looking at your phone. I think this was written a long time ago, before cell phones. I would definitely add that for now, as part of not listening. You are listening to me when you come quietly into my private world and let me be me. when you really try to understand me, even if I'm not making much sense. When you grasp my point of view, even when it's against your own sincere convictions. You are listening to me when you realize that the hour I took from you has left you a bit tired and drained. When you allow me the dignity of making my own decisions, even when you think they may be wrong. When you do not take my problem from me, but allow me to deal with it in my own way. You are listening to me when you hold back your desire to give me a good word of advice. When you do not offer me religious solace, when you sense I'm not ready for it. You are listening to me when you give me enough room to discover for myself what is really going on. And when you accept my gift of gratitude by telling me how good it makes you feel to know you have been helpful. That's all for now. I'll be back soon with more on nonviolent discipline. Please like if you found this video helpful and subscribe if you haven't already. These videos are made to promote safer environments for children, so please share them with others who may find them helpful. Thanks for watching.